Right, so camera basics. I kind of want to talk to you guys about what sorts of settings to use, and I want to go through all the settings, and I'll probably go through them quite quickly. So if you want to pause the video and kind of like look over what I've talked about, you're more than welcome. I'd rather you do that, so by the end of the video you know what you're doing. So quite a lot of us will have either, a little small camera like this, or like this. Either way, you'll have a kit lens, a kind of like mirrorless DSLR, and you'll have some settings on the top. And the settings on the top are, obviously different for different cameras. This camera, as you can see, has tons of different dials and different settings on it. And it's actually quite confusing sometimes to understand what sort of setting you should be using. And I'm just gonna simplify it a little bit. So the three modes on a camera that I would use are TV, AV, and manual mode, which is M on most cameras. And if your camera doesn't have that, don't worry. I mean, you're not really going to be able to do much else but use automatic. But if you are fine with just kind of like just using automatic, then there are still settings that you can change. But these settings basically read shutter speed priority, aperture priority, and manual mode, which is just control of everything. AV and TV, which are aperture and shutter speed priority, you basically have a control over only one setting and the ISO. Each one of them modes controls, as I say, different aspects of the settings. The three settings that you've got are shutter speed, aperture, and ISO, and they're basically the only three things that you need to know about on a camera properly to take a good photo. There's also stuff like white balance, autofocus, but really you can manual focus a camera, and if you're taking photos in RAW anyway, the white balance really doesn't matter because you can change that in post. Choosing your shutter speed is a difficult one because you'll have let's say you've got a long exposure, you'll want a long, let's say a minute shutter speed. But if you're taking something fast like cars or bikes and stuff like that, you want to have a really fast shutter speed. I would go for, basically shutter speed, let's say of 2000, which most of your cameras will have. Some might not, but if you do, you will be able to take photos of like birds, flying insects, anything that's like just super fast. And obviously, like I said before, if you want to do a long exposure, you want to have really, really long shutter speed so you can actually capture the movement in a photo. Basically, landscapes with like water flowing through them, clouds going out above a mountain, you'll capture that water and it will make it smooth, and the clouds will also be quite silky. So you've got them settings for the shutter speed, and it's really depending on what sort of feel and what you are taking. Aperture is another one which will depend on what sort of photo you want. Aperture controls the depth of field, so like in this video you can see the background's just a little bit blurry, and basically what I have as an aperture on my camera at the moment is a small aperture. So I've got an aperture of 2.8, so if you want them blurry backgrounds, you really want the lowest aperture possible. Anything 2.8 and below, you'll get a blurry background. But also if you have something like this, this is a long lens, and it'll basically blur the background if you shoot from really far away. So if I put this at 200mm, compression, which is something that I will describe in a different video, will actually blur the background even if you have like an f-stop number of like 4 or 5. So yeah, long lenses blur the background, and also a small number on the aperture. But if you want to have everything sharp, I would put an f-stop number of 13 without losing any sharpness, because if you do go higher than that, you can actually make your photo a little bit blurred as well. So that's shutter speed and aperture, and now we're going to move on to ISO. And ISO is basically the sensitivity of the sensor which is behind the mirror. Basically that will be at 100 as its base ISO, and I'd recommend to keep it there. And what you want to be doing with your ISO is basically, seeing if, with your settings on your shutter speed and your aperture, if the photo is either too exposed or underexposed. And if your photo is underexposed, you can just like boost the sensitivity of the sensor, and that just makes your life just a little bit easier. But do be careful, because if you bump it up like way past, let's say 10,000, you are going to get some noise, which is kind of like the purple speckles in the background, grainy sort of kind of texture on your photos and videos, and that can be a real big distraction. But yeah, I'd safely go up to around 800 ISO and you probably won't get any noise. You've got all those settings there. How do I actually use them to make sure that I can get a good photo? So once you know what sort of photo you're taking, let's say you're taking a photo of some landscapes, I would choose what sort of aperture that I want really first, with that sort of setting. So I would be saying that I want something that's sharp. I'd say an f number of 13, and then really I'd keep the ISO as low as possible. And there's some settings which are just more important than the others, and you just really need to kind of like see what's in front of you and say, right, okay, that's fast, I need to do a fast shutter speed. That's moving water, I need to do a slow shutter speed. There's a portrait of somebody, I need to take a photo of somebody and I want the background blurred. You will have a small aperture number. If you're in low light, you want to have like a small aperture and maybe boost the ISO as well, just so you can have that shutter speed quick. There's all sorts of different situations where you'll have to basically just experiment, and it's one of them things where if you don't go out and try, then you're not really going to get anywhere. And I always say this to anybody I'm trying to teach the settings of cameras to, is that you've got to either fake it to make it, or you need to be in it to win it. Both of them things are true. I've obviously been learning as I've been going along, and it's been great because I've been getting out and I've been taking photos of things I've never taken photos of. I started doing landscape, did a little bit of portrait photography, I've done a little bit of car photography, just all sorts of different things. And seriously, the best way to learn your settings on your camera is to get out there and have fun, because that's what it is. As soon as you take some photos, you'll enjoy it like to no end, I swear down. But yeah, if you enjoyed the video, please, slap that like button, comment, subscribe. If you didn't like it, just tell me and then I can improve on my videos. But it would really help me if you subscribed, because I'm trying to get to a certain number, so I can make myself a YouTube channel where people can actually see me and I can actually make more videos. But yeah, until next time, thank you for watching. I will see you again.